Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never sit out. We're your hosts, Andy and CD. Today, we got week 4 previews. Yeah, we're recording this on Monday, so this is early. All right, we're going to try to get this thing out Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. I don't know when y'all will be listening to this, but regardless, if you like the content, like the video. It's a very simple rule that we have here. We would appreciate it very much if you just hit that like button. And you know what? If you want to stick with us for the rest of the season, just all you gotta do is hit subscribe, right? And maybe those little notifications. We got recaps and previews every single week. Maybe a couple other surprises throughout the year. Maybe if some coaching changes happen in these next couple weeks, which I don't know. They could start happening pretty soon here, based on what we've seen. But yeah, I'm pumped. We got 8 games on the docket. We're also gonna have our dirty underdogs station, where we're gonna be dropping absolutely stinky money lines of gigantic spreads, and then we got our best bets. So make sure you're locked in with us for this entire episode because we got a ton of stuff to talk about. If we didn't preview a game that you wanted to preview or you wanted us to preview, just let us know in the comments, and maybe we'll preview that team next week, maybe the week after. I don't know, but look, we're here to serve you guys as well. We talk about what we want to talk about here, but we're also here to serve you. So we appreciate you guys for joining us on the ride. CD, how we doing?
Not much excited. Obviously, pretty eventful week 3, even though, the national pundit said it's not going to be, today's when you could do your grocery shopping and your lawn and all that good stuff. No, 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 no. It's college football Saturday. This week, we've got some intriguing games on Thursday and Friday as well in conference, as well as obviously a loaded Saturday slate. We cannot wait to get into it. Like Matthew said, we're going to be talking a bunch of football right now. Obviously, like and subscribe, like always, and let's do it.
The first game, let's just get right into it. Illinois travels to Lincoln, Nebraska. Two teams kind of on the upward trajectory right now. I do have questions about Illinois' actual strength of schedule, though, because how good is Kansas? When Jalen Daniels is not playing good, Kansas is not a very good football team, and it seems like he has not been playing very well at all. So there are some concerns about that. On the Nebraska side, they just match up really well against Colorado, right? These are two teams that both CD and I believed in before the start of the season, and we were kind of all over it. We knew that this Nebraska defensive line was going to be awesome. We had a feeling that Illinois' offensive line and defensive whole entire aspect, that Aaron Henry led defense, was going to improve in some aspect. Here we are. They are, and Nebraska is a 9-point favorite right now at home, which may be a lot of points to some of you, but again, I challenge you to look at Illinois' strength of schedule right now. I know we thought Kansas might be really good entering the season, and they may be as Jalen Daniels gets more acclimated to playing football because of his injury. I just challenge you to look at the teams that they've played and what they've done against them. All right. And the same thing goes for Nebraska. So I think this is a tough game for me to read. This is not bettable for me at all, but I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts on this game, CD, as our Big Ten guy.
Yeah. So last year, obviously, they played in Champaign there, and Nebraska went over on the road and kind of body bagged them. And this is a Nebraska team that was struggling early in the season, especially on their offense side of the ball, and they ran the ball very well. Heinrich Harburg was quarterback there. Obviously, Caden Fegan had not quite been going yet for Illinois. Same with Luke Altmaier, was still kind of feeling his rhythm. Both these guys and both these teams offensively look much different today this season than it did last year, right? So it's going to be a totally different football game. And Nebraska, obviously, after the impressive win against Colorado, but let's not forget. Listen, I know you said that about Kansas and Daniels, and you're absolutely right. Right, when Daniels is not throwing the ball well, or really when he has to throw the ball well, Kansas is a very beatable football team. We saw that last weekend as well with UNLV. Illinois did a really good job in that game. I thought game planning wise, I thought offensively, I was super, super impressed with Luke Altmaier. I do worry though, Nebraska's D line is really good. And I think Illinois might struggle to run the football. And Luke Altmaier is better off of play action. He throws a beautiful ball off of play action than he is when he has to drop back and pass. And that's what worries me, especially with how talented Nebraska is at getting after the quarterback. Right. So this game it's gonna be really awesome. So obviously Friday night, quote unquote standalone game, but you've got others there, obviously, and we'll be watching multiple of them. But Fox has it, And I know Memorial Stadium, it's a ranked matchup. They'll be ready to go after, impressive 2 weeks ago. Oh man, Dylan Raiola against Brett Bielema. It'll be interesting. Because I was really impressed. Obviously, Jalen Daniels is one of the better quarterbacks in college football when he's playing well and healthy, right? And he struggled against this Illinois team. Granted, it was on the road, so Illinois was hosting, and Raiola will have, home field advantage, have the comfortability, not have to go on the road against the Illinois team. But that to me is going to be really interesting because obviously very excited to watch when Illinois has the ball and the defense that Nebraska brings to you. But to me, it's how can Dylan Raiola elevate this team and continue to play really, really good football, sound football, smart football, taking care of the football, right? All these good things that you don't necessarily see from a freshman quarterback. But now we're getting into conference play, and he has to be at his best, as continue to be at his best. It'd be awesome. So listen, if I had to make a pick, I'll go Nebraska to win, but I do not know if they can blow out Illinois, right? So I think it's gonna be a one-score game. I don't know if Nebraska will sweat, right? Like really sweat in this game, have to come from behind, but I do think Illinois will not go down without a fight. So we're picking this at what, 8.5?
We'll pick it at 9. Well, eight, let's pick it at
9,
eight
yeah.
and a half. Eight and a half is good. I like that.
So we don't push. Yeah,
We
so
don't.
I'll go Nebraska to win, but Illinois to cover. Kind of middle it there.
Okay, I'm probably going to be the same with you right now. I do want to talk about Illinois' defense a little bit though. 9 turnovers they forced in 3 games. That's pretty bonkers. 6 interceptions. That's third in the country. 3 forced fumbles. That's top 15, or 3 fumbles recovered. That's top 15 in the country for Illinois. So is this Illinois defense just kind of being on the lucky side in the constant luck battle that is the turnover game sometimes? However, Luke Altmaier has also not put the ball in harm's way yet. What happens if he does? Right? That is its own issue. These are both two teams that are scoring on average more than 30 points a game, allowing less than 10 points per game. I like the way that both of these teams are playing right now. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Nebraska's going to. In fact, when they played Colorado, they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. So I don't imagine this ever really being a blowout. And I do challenge, like, Aaron Henry gives some really nasty looks in the secondary. Like, what is Dylan Raiola's response going to be to some of those press man looks, those disguise man looks? Like, what is that going to look like through the lens of Dylan Raiola as a true freshman? I don't see Nebraska blowing this Illinois team up, but I do see Nebraska winning. So I'm with you. Give me Nebraska to win, Illinois to cover the 8.5.
Let me ask you this here. So you mentioned two quarterbacks. You mentioned the turnover, quote unquote luck, or I guess opportunistic style of offense and defense they've played. Dylan Raiola at home, right, against this Illinois opportunistic defense, or Altmaier going against a really good and talented defense with a very,
Yeah.
very good defense coordinator in their own right, too, on the
Yeah.
road. Obviously, Altmaier has the more experience, right? And maybe the better surrounding cast. I don't
No,
know. Zachariah Franklin has been awesome. Pat Bryant's really good.
it's an
I love
interesting it's an
Nebraska's.
interesting
I love Nebraska's
conversation.
offense.
It's an interesting
Yeah.
conversation because if you want to compare offensive lines, I might give Illinois the edge there, although I haven't seen enough from them this year to truly say that they've improved. Yeah, we've seen 3 games, but 3 games against teams that aren't necessarily have impact players in the defensive line the way that Nebraska does. I thought Nebraska's offensive line has played all right, and they've been able to run the ball more effectively than they were last year. I mean, neither of these defenses have allowed a rushing touchdown, by the way, this whole season. So I imagine that changing probably this game. Don't know what side. I don't know what side's going to break first, but I'd probably. Man, that's a really good question because I like Nebraska's wide receiver group. I like Illinois' wide receiver group. Probably the way that Illinois has been utilizing those offensive weapons, I'd probably give Illinois the edge there. But Nebraska, I think, gets a significant bump on the defensive side of the ball because of that front seven that they have. And, not to mention, their DBs are very underratedly athletic. Like, when I look at Nebraska's defense right now, I view them as a top 20, top 15 defense with room to grow. I seriously do. And I don't see that with Illinois, but I see vast improvement. I think we've seen it from this last year's team, which really struggled, especially in the secondary when they're trying to do things that they didn't necessarily have the the talent to do. Now they have the talent to do it there. So really, really exciting game here. 11 a.m. Central kickoff. Cannot wait for this game. Next game I want to talk about, NC State traveling to Clemson. This spread is 20.5 right now.
Real quick about that, it opened much, much closer than that. I believe it was at eight and a
open
half.
in the summer. In the summer.
Yes, thank you. When I say open, I mean you could have gotten into summer at 8.5.
Which I would not have touched with a 1,000,000-foot pole. But watching this NC State team, look, you and I, we had our doubts about this NC State team, like what their defense was actually going to look like. I believed in Grayson McCall and the synergy that he might have with Robert Anae, because I think that Grayson McCall's skill set plays in what Robert Anae wants to do. And I thought that NC State had the weapons. The offensive line was a question mark, right? Jordan Waters, unfortunately, has been able to run the ball, but like I understand why this spread is at 20.5. Like I totally get it. I mean, this Clemson team is significantly more talented than NC State. And it's also in Clemson.
The question here is, so McCall obviously got hurt last game, and where they struggled again to put away Louisiana Tech. They needed a 10-point fourth quarter to get the win there.
Yeah.
Do we know much about it? I mean, Bailey came in and he's young kid, right? Very young kid, and he looked better. But
I mean, it was a
I don't
Louisiana
love that.
Tech team that, quite frankly, Sonny Cumbie, loved the guy. Not a good football team over there for Louisiana Tech by any stretch of the imagination. You like the past 3 years, they've consistently lost all of their best players on the offensive side of the ball to the transfer portal. We saw them have explosive in the first half. There were some explosive plays for Louisiana Tech. I'm concerned about this NC State team. And if you and I are, if we're just picking here, I'm not betting this, but I'll lay the 20.5 with Clemson for our picks. I'll do it. I'm gonna lay the 20.5 for Clemson.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there. The McCall scares me just because in terms of if it's a 20-point game, we're talking about right, reasons why NC State can compete and win this football game. And B, right, if Clemson's gonna win and cover, what can they elevate and can they separate? And to be honest, I think they can, man. I'm still higher on Clemson, even after they got body bagged by Georgia in the second half. I still like their offense. I thought NC State's defense looked pretty vulnerable against the Tennessee team. I love Clemson at home. And I do think if you're going to cover by 21 points or more, right, I'm picking at 20.5, turnovers, right, especially if you get CJ Bailey playing from behind and having to make plays, forced to make plays, and you get that Clemson defensive line, opportunistic secondary, playmakers at the linebacking level, all that adds up to a talk about like a blowout where this game can really get out of hand, just like we saw with NC State and Tennessee, where you had a couple interceptions and turnovers kind of contribute to, the bowling ball that was that game for NC State. Damn, man. First of all, NC State has to try to run the football, especially with a young quarterback. You have to. There is no excuse not to attempt it and to at least try to be good. I thought they ran the ball better last week against Louisiana Tech than they had before. But again, Raphael, Jordan Waters, even CJ Bailey on the ground. Can those guys be enough to keep you in this game long enough to make Klubnik, to make this Clemson offense press? I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, they kind of ran the ball okay at times against La Tech, but like, or Louisiana Tech, I don't know. Are Louisiana Tech fans gonna get pissed? I just said La Tech, maybe. Just keep it cool with Virginia Tech fans. All right, that's our rule here, I guess, that we've learned. Okay, but I mean, Western Carolina shredded that NC State defense pretty early in the game, and that's without. Remember, you know who Pitt's offensive coordinator is this year? Who's doing, I don't know, quite fantastic for them? Cade Bell, who was the offensive coordinator for Western Carolina last season. So with a new offensive coordinator in their first game, Western Carolina gave NC State all they could handle. Louisiana Tech gave them all they could handle. This Clemson team is going to overwhelm, outplay, out physical, and overall, this Clemson game. I don't anticipate this game being close. I anticipate this game being a snapshot of what the rest of the year for this NC State team looks like, I don't think this NC State team is very good. And I think we kind of saw the writings on the wall before the season. I didn't bet the under or anything because I gave, Dave Doran, who consistently wins there, Robert and I, Tony Gibson, I gave them all the benefit of the doubt because they are very good coaches, but the talent is not here.
Real quick, just confirm. So it sounds like um, CJ Bailey is going to start. McCall, Dave Doran just announced earlier today, like real quick, right before we were recording this, that he is day to day, but also CJ Bailey is going to start. So hopefully McCall gets back soon. But at least you got all week to have CJ Bailey, prepped and ready to go. But I do think with how Clemson responded against their App State, with the emergence of a guy like Bryant Wesco and the other receivers and Phil Moff on the ground, I do like Clemson, and I do like them to pull away in this game. 11 a.m. kickoff, though. ABC, who knows? Sometimes at those 11 o'clock windows, you get close games between two teams that maybe don't belong in the same field together, but I don't quite see it this week.
Let's do our first G5 preview of the year. Tulane is traveling to Louisiana to play against Louisiana-Lafayette Raging Cajuns, the Fighting Ben Woolridges. All right. Tulane hasn't looked terrible against their rather tough schedule to start the year. On the other hand, Louisiana has looked awesome. And the reason why we want to talk about this game is because when you look at teams in G5, right, that have a chance of making the college football playoffs, maybe you think of Tulane, right? However, with the loss to Oklahoma, it looks a little bit awkward right now. John Summerall's still there. They still got a really, really talented team there, and they can make a run in that American Conference, which, to my knowledge, is not very strong outside of Memphis, right, and Tulane. Louisiana, on the other hand, we were talking about this these past couple weeks. The Sun Belt has not looked great the way that I thought they would. At least some of the teams, even Coastal Carolina struggled last week against a not so good, was it Temple team? That was a team that I thought might take the reins of the Sun Belt. James Madison, we've only seen him play 2 games. They almost lost to Gardner Webb. I just, if Louisiana can take these steps and just continue playing good football, if they win this game against Tulane, I think it can prove to me that this is a team that's pretty serious. Not about winning a national championship, but we're talking about potentially making the college football playoffs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you were the one pounding the table to get us to preview this game because, obviously it might not get the national attention. It's on ESPNU, for crying out loud. What kind of TV deal did the Sun Belt do to get that? That's ridiculous. Regardless, though, I can't wait. First of all, in-state matchup, obviously, Tulane's in New Orleans there, Louisiana, obviously in Lafayette there. So it's going to be really exciting. These teams have played each other before, not too often, not like frequently, but obviously there's some kind of rivalry there. A lot of storyline. Tulane's got some talent. I think Tulane's top end talent is pretty good, right? Obviously, Mekhi Hughes is a headliner there, but Keith Brown. They bring in some transfers as well.
Mario
Darian
Williams.
Mensah, Mario Williams, like those guys are good football players. Rayshon Pleasant as well on the defensive side of the football. But Louisiana, and I was a guy that in our upset picks in week 2, I was like, hey, Kennesaw State at home, big time spread. I feel like they might have a chance here. And Louisiana really, really impressed me. I mean, really impressed me. They took the bull by the horns in that game. They were up big, pretty easily as well. Almost well outplayed them. It'll be interesting. This will be an interesting game. I mean, obviously Woolridge is there for Louisiana and Tulane. Yes, they haven't lost and they're 1-2 record. You're like, well, what is that really that impressive? But Kansas State, same Kansas State team that just body bagged Arizona, right? This is Oklahoma team that has a lot of talent. Obviously, offensively, it has not looked great, but again, maybe it's Tulane giving them some problems defensively. I really was going back and forth on this game. I did not feel great either way, just because everything. But I'm gonna take Tulane and I'll take them to cover, even on the road here. They just have really impressed me, and Louisiana, like you said, they've impressed me too. But they're 1 week away from me being able to really buy into them as Sun Belt and G5 contenders where I think Tulane, Summerall, I trust that staff. I trust the talent on that team. And defense and running game can translate into the road, like going over to Louisiana. So, yeah, give me Tulane minus 3.5.
When you look at the stats, it looks like Tulane has trouble stopping the run. Okay, 4.5 yards per carry allowed, 166 yards per game. Um, but I don't think that's really it, right? Like Oklahoma, they shut down the run game. Oklahoma's run game against Tulane was Jackson Arnold, like on a couple
Mm-hmm.
explosive carries. Like that was the run game. Kansas State, I have a feeling, is going to be able to run the football against practically whoever they want to, right? So I don't take that game and use it to characterize Tulane as a team that is bad against the run. Louisiana-Lafayette against Kennesaw State, we saw was really effective when they ran the football. I think that's the key to this game. If Louisiana can keep the ball out of now, Woolridge has been okay, right? But if you keep putting the ball in his hands, I don't feel like he is going to be the guy that wins this game, right? Louisiana needs to hand it off, get those running backs involved, just keep grounding and pounding it. I mean, they're averaging, let's see, 5.9 yards per carry. They've taken care of the football really well. But again, they've played Grambling and Kennesaw State, right? Before this year, neither of those teams were Division I football teams. So I'm with you. I'll take Tulane. I'll lay the 3.5. I was pretty close to actually betting this, to be honest. I think Tulane is much more talented than Louisiana. But I think it's something worth monitoring. Like, hey, if we come back to this in our recap and Louisiana wins this football game, I think we need to start looking at Louisiana a little bit differently in terms of their standings in the Sun Belt. I mean, literally, but also like for the future, heading towards the remainder of the season, we might be like, hey, this Louisiana team could compete for a Sun Belt championship with the Appalachian states, with the James Madisons, with the Texas states. You know, I we'll see, but I'm with you. I'll ride the Tulane, laying the 3.5.
Oh, okay, real quick, last thing here in terms of vibes check, right? So Louisiana's at home, right? They're pumped up. Even though Tulane's not, a power four team in the American, they're still a well-respected brand. And I do think there's some chip on their shoulder
In
from the
state,
Raging Cajuns there in state. They had a bye week last week, so they were able to sit down and prepare while Tulane had to go and play Oklahoma after playing Kansas State, two physical football teams. Do we think there's going to be some kind of schedule dynamics fatigue effect here, right? Early morning game, right? At least I know it's not a crazy travel schedule, but again, is Tulane two straight road games after two straight physical football games? Are you worried about that at all? Because that's why I think that line is so low, and I think Vegas is kind of waiting for you to take Tulane, and then all of a sudden, they're going to see something from Tulane just being tired, right? Just being tired. But I do think if you go on the football, if you can stop the run, which I mean, I think they can, I think they have a chance to in this game. I think that will help you and give you opportunity to win this football game.
this should be a rivalry, by the way. It's like not like it should be. They should start
Well,
playing each other more often.
yeah, there's a lot of talent in
But it's not like
Louisiana
a.
and state there.
It doesn't have like a title. I don't know the lore behind the Green Wave and the Raging Cajuns, but there's no like name for their rivalry. There should be though. I feel like there should be. This is
Now,
Louisiana. Battle for the rag. I know it's LSU Tulane, but
they've only played 29 times
come on,
since 1911.
come on, in
29
state, come
times.
on, come
And a
on.
couple of those were in bowl games too.
Be better, be better. Louisiana and Tulane, be better. USC travels to Ann Arbor. They play against Michigan. USC is favored by 6.5 points. Good Lord, has Michigan's offense looked absolutely abysmal. And USC's defense has looked improved. I mean, I'm not going to waste your time and try to convince you why I think Michigan can win this football game. I'll take USC not lay the 6.5, but this is not a bet. But here's how Michigan does win. I yes, I am wasting your time. They start Alex Orji, and he somehow does well because Davis Warren cannot win this football game. And also, if they keep handing the ball to Donovan Edwards instead of Khalil Mullins, they're doing themselves a disservice. And they're continuing to feed into what is already a terrible offense. You're using your less effective running back. You're using a quarterback who's thrown 6 interceptions in 3 games. 2 of those games were against G5 teams. Look, I get the defense is pretty spectacular, but also USC, we've seen the talent in this receiving core and time. Like this is no slouch for Michigan. Plus, USC's offensive line is incredibly underrated. It's something that we talked about previous to the season. USC has a good, talented offensive line. Lincoln Riley, that's the one position where he's like, nope, I'm not going to go in the transfer portal. I don't need it. Let's go. Let's ride. Okay. I think Lincoln Riley likes this team that he has. I think he's shown that they can win football games and be consistent on offense and defense, down in and down out. This could be a low-scoring game if Michigan's defense does what it's capable of doing. But if this defense is continually on the field over and over and over again, eventually they're going to break. So I'm going to give USC, and I'm gonna lay the 6.5 points for USC.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, how quickly have things changed in 4 weeks? I'm talking about both programs. The USC was a program beginning of the year was getting a lot of hate and more so question. I think it's like, okay, how are they going to translate to the Big Ten? Right, their defense is new, totally new staff. Are they going to be any good? You're losing Caleb Williams and all this talent offensively, and they have answered the bell and then some. Right, Michigan, the total opposite. Right, they have really struggled in 3 straight weeks. This game back in the summer. This game, Vegas had lined at 10.5. Michigan minus 10.5. This is almost a 16, 17-point swing in just 4 weeks, right? How many people in the summer gave USC a chance to win this football game in the preseason? And like you said, Matthew, the way to beat Michigan this year, especially if Al Georgie, who, by the way, he could have had 3 weeks to develop and try to have a chance to win this football game. Right? Neglected. First of all, real quick, tangent wise, okay, this is on me and maybe us too, maybe media in general, for not factoring in how different and maybe much of a downgrade it really was from Jim Harbaugh to Sherrone Moore. Now, I'm not selling the farm on Sherrone Moore. I'm not calling him a bust or a failure quite yet. But I do think some of the personnel decisions that he has made, especially on the offensive side of the football, knowing the kind of talent you have, defense, knowing the strength of your team and not leaning into them and just refusing, almost ignorance, right? It's almost ignorance, and it's just a total disservice to Michigan. Regardless, though, they need to run the football. Michigan does, because they have no chance otherwise not to. Alex Orji, is he going to be the guy? I think he has to be, because what he can do, keeping the ball away from USC, right, running the football, controlling the clock, and also just start developing him. It's not Davis Warren. It's not, right? Is it Jack Tuttle? I don't think so. We've seen him plenty of places before. I really don't know, man. I really don't know. And I don't know why I'm not putting a lot of money on USC. I just think it's still in my brain that, okay, Michigan is Michigan, right? They're at home, right? They're not going to get blown out. There's a chance, right, that they could go in and kind of physically dominate the game. Texas went in there and dominated. And USC, I really like their trenches offensively. And I do like their trenches defensively, I think, more than I did at the beginning of the season. But again, right, it's still not quite the level that Texas is. That, to me, is the one issue I do have. I think Texas was able to bully around Michigan. I don't know if USC can too. No, I don't think they will get bullied, but it'll be up to Miller Moss. It'll be up to these playmakers on a defensive side of the football and offensive side of the football to, really be able to separate this game. If you can get out to an early start in Ann Arbor, I do not know how passionate that crowd's going to be. I really do not. And for Sherrone Moore, Michigan, this would be a disastrous start. I mean, I think if you told Michigan fans, hey, listen, you're going to lose to Texas, who's, by the way, the number 1 ranked team in the country, and USC, who will be a top 8 team in the country as well, right? They go, okay, you know what? It is what it is. But it's just the way it's looked, I think, is what has me so frustrated, as well as many Michigan fans. And Colson Loveland, too, by the way, who's probably your best weapon offensively, right? Is he hurt? I mean, he I don't know.
One
but
reception from a wide receiver last week. One. Actually, sorry, it was 1 receiver, 2 receptions for 3 yards. What are we doing? I understand they were able to run the ball effectively in the second half. I don't care. You're not going to be able to do that every game. You're not, especially when USC is loading the box. And by the way, those linebackers have played pretty well so far.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, Ramsey has been awesome. You put him in the box, he's going to get physical. Okay. I mean, goodness gracious, Sharon Moore. And he knows his personnel too. That's what makes this disgusting. It's like he knows he's been in this program. He knows his personnel. That's what makes this sickening. And you could say all you want, oh, Jim Harbaugh put him in a bad spot. No. No. How many quarterbacks did you see in the transfer portal? Like, I don't know, 8 billion that were serviceable? How about Timmy McClain at Arkansas State? How about Grayson McCall? How about literally anyone?
Maybe not McCall.
Maybe not now, but Chandler Rogers, who's a backup now at Cal, who you would love to have on this team, by the way. Love. What do we do? Would you take Cole Snyder over Davis Warren? I might. I probably would. I just might. Brennan Sorsby. Like, what are we doing, Michigan? What are we doing? Come on, man.
My worry here is that I think Michigan, and I guess I'm kind of getting away from the game here, but I think Michigan kind of I think they thought they were going to be able to do what Jim Harbaugh did back in 2021 with Cade McNamara and be able to kind of run the Big Ten with a really good defense, a good running game, and then a serviceable passing game, right? At times you could rely upon it.
Yeah,
First of all, Big Ten, much better this year than it was 3 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And Davis Warren is a significant downgrade than what Cade McNamara was. And the weapons that you had, there's like 3 of those receivers that are all in the NFL. Right? I don't know if anyone in that wide receiver room is going to the NFL for Michigan, unless things drastically change. I don't know. But man, USC, listen, if USC wins this football game, and like I think we think they will, is the hype going to be like, are we ready to prepare for that as college football fans? We got Miami playing well. We have Texas playing well. We have USC playing well, man.
It's 2005. It's
we are back, 2004, man.
2003.
We are back. And yeah,
Florida State's terrible.
Except, yeah.
What are you going to do? Utah travels to Stillwater. Look, conference games are always scary in Stillwater. Cam Rising, is he going to play? Signs indicate that he is. All right.
But there were signs back in week 1 last year.
I know
that he was going to play.
I know it's a finger thing, and apparently it's not broken or fractured or anything like that. I don't know if it was like an infection, if it was a sprain. I mean, they played against Utah State last week. Maybe they were just like, hey, just take a breather, kid, because Utah State's terrible. I don't know. But if Cam Rising, if Cam Rising plays, I take Utah. If he does not play, I take Oklahoma State. It's that simple. Okay. I'm going to run under the assumption that Cam Rising is playing. I'll lay the 1.5 with Utah. I think they're a team that can stop Ollie Gordon in the run game. You saw Arkansas did it, right? You have one of the better defensive coaching staffs in the entire country. I know you're not at home, and the Utah home-away split is pretty drastic. Not the level that Wyoming is necessarily, but it's pretty drastic. And the home-away split for Stillwater for Oklahoma State is also drastic too. Like, that's why I think this line is as close as it is. But given it's at 1.5, yeah, I'll take Utah to win and cover. I'll do it.
I'm going to too. Listen, if Cam Rising's playing, I think this is crazy value, right? Crazy value. Utah, to me, when he was healthy and playing well against Baylor, they are a tier above anything I've seen in the Big 12. Maybe Kansas State last week, but again, I still think
good.
Utah?
No, Kansas State did.
Oh, yeah, they did. But again, this week prior, they were struggling with Tulane. Regardless, though, Oklahoma State in a win still scared the crap out of me against Arkansas, man. I really don't know. And the way they ran the ball, like you said, with Green and Jaquin and Jackson, Micah Bernard has looked very good, right? He's no Jaquin and Jackson, right? Former Utah guy there, but he's healthy, damn it. And that is something Quinn Jackson could not do his time in Utah. And if he's playing well, he's obviously averaged 6.7 yards per carry. That's not sustainable, right? But it's really damn good. And I do think, product of their offensive
I don't
line,
know.
which I
In the
think has
Big
gotten better
12,
from last year.
in the Big 12, it could be sustainable.
3-3-5s. Who knows? And against Oklahoma State, it damn sure could be. Ollie Gordon needs to control this football game and let Bowman be able to be complementary with Stribling and Owens and Presley. Those are three really good options. I mean, really good options. But Gordon has to be the option one. It has to be successful option one for them to have a chance and to put pressure on Utah, whether it's Cam Rising, who, by the way, hasn't played a ton of football recently. I know I trust him when he's in and healthy, but still, I mean, if you're going to win this football game, you're going to have to control the clock, control the run, give your defense some kind of break. Because if you're Utah's good, man. Utah's good. And what they do so well is take advantage of your weaknesses. And there is a glaring one on defense side of the football for Oklahoma State. And if you can't stop the run and you can't run on offense and control the game and be able to put Isaac Wilson or whoever's playing quarterback for Utah, you know, playing catch up, then you could be in some real trouble there. That's where you see value for Utah. But yeah, I'll go Utah -1.5, or what was it, one?
1.5.
Yeah, minus one and a half.
I got 1.5. So,
Yeah,
man, it doesn't make too much of a difference, I guess. But we don't want to push these. All right, when we're picking these games, we don't want to push. All right, for
exactly.
this. But yeah, of course, because we don't know the stats of Cam Rising, like it's not bettable. It's not bettable.
I do think though, like, they don't do availability reports in the Big 12, do they?
I don't think so. If they were in the SEC, it would be a different story. Although they would probably just be like game time decision. That's what they'd probably say. And then
Well, yeah, you dug Kyle Whittingham. Listen, that game's 3 o'clock on Fox, and
Central
not that
Time.
I am Central Time. Thank you. Not that I'm advising, putting money on anything, but I do think, right, especially this game, if you're watching pregame warmups and you see Cam Rising out there healthy and taking reps with the ones and looking good, first of all, send us a tweet.
Yeah, it's tag us at the
Send
Redshirt
us a
Sophomore
tweet.
or at the Redshirt Soph, and we will lay down a 10-unit
We'll
mega
meet you
max
there.
whale on Utah. All right, that's what will happen.
Well, we don't advise you to do that, but if you want to and you
But
do
we'll
so
do
feel
it for
inclined,
you. I'll send you a tip. All right.
yes, so that would be awesome. Or if you're in the stands there in Stillwater, but regardless, so first of all, by the way, we haven't really talked about the Big 12 implications of this. Like, I kind of forgetting this is a conference game because it's Utah and Oklahoma State. I mean, you look at teams like UCF, Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State, maybe Iowa State. Like those teams have kind of separated themselves right into conference contenders. I think early on in September, the winner of this game is in a very, very good spot to at least make the title game, right? Just because of with the way their schedules do break out after this, especially with Arizona not looking great for Utah, right? And Oklahoma State having again another pretty manageable schedule.
Who knows? Cincinnati? Sneaky? Just kidding. Guys,
Penny
we're
Penny
just kidding
Dillingham
over
3
here.
0.
Kenny Dillingham 3-0? Sneaky? No, we're kidding, guys. Kidding. But yeah, it's going to be an awesome game. I can't wait. Cal travels to Tallahassee, Florida to take on the Seminoles. Boy, oh boy. There's a chance that Florida State could be 0-4 with losses to California, Memphis, Boston College, and Georgia Tech.
Can I say something? No.
The academics and then Memphis.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, holy cow. I didn't think about that. Well, come on. Memphis doesn't deserve that. Let's go. The
Okay, but
Tigers.
like there's a
Derrick
separate
Rose. Are you
tier.
telling me Derrick Rose was not a scholar
Oh yeah,
at
yeah, yeah.
Memphis?
Derrick Rose, but absolutely a scholar, and everyone would tell you that.
Yeah. But first of all, I do think when we were talking about this in August, right? Or before week 0, right? Like you look at Florida State's schedule and you're like, well, they're probably going to be 5-0 going against Clemson. But listen, and they could be 0-4, man. Holy cow. But I do think Boston College has impressed people a lot more than they think. Georgia Tech, obviously, we were high on them, but Georgia Tech, I think, has impressed people a lot more than you would have thought. And so has Cal, man. Cal has looked really, really good. I was super impressed with the way they bounced back after going on the road to Auburn and getting a very good win there for that program and being able to bounce back and play San Diego State. Tough coaching staff there and look good and play well without Jade Knott. Now, Jay Knott needs to be healthy, man. Doesn't need to be. Okay, I'll say that.
He's probable. He's probable for that game.
Thomas has looked really good, though. But Ott is a difference maker. And
But he's
if you're
also
Florida
banged
State,
up. They're both banged up.
but
But he,
Mendoza's playing so well, man.
yeah. But if you get Tobias Merriweather back, Grays, Brady, I don't know. I still think you have. He's done well with the receivers that he's had, even though he's had guys out. I mean, you thought Tobias Merriweather from Notre Dame was going to be a pretty big difference maker for you. And what I've just been impressed with is the defense. It's just impressed me. And for this Florida State team, which, as we speak, as we've said a billion times, sitting here talking about them, they still do not have an identity offensively, and they choose to not run the football. And if there's, I mean, I guess Cal's pass defense has looked really good thus far. I think their run defense is fine as well, but Florida State's got to run the ball. Okay. They have Cal traveling all the way from the freaking other side of the coast. In academic school, Cal Berkeley is traveling from the other side of the United States of America. They're coming to your place. You were only a 2.5 point favorite. That means, guess what that means? Neutral site. Cal is a higher power rated team than Florida State this year. What kind of world do we live in? And I might be thinking like, oh, well, that's value. Florida State's obviously the better team than California. That has not been the case so far this season. This Cal team is good. This Cal team is good. I'm gonna take them. I'm gonna take the 2.5 points. All right, I'm gonna take Cal. They're gonna go into Tallahassee and they're gonna win that football game. And then people are gonna start paying attention to Cal, which is kind of silly because Florida State stinks.
We've
You
been
know.
here. We've
Now
been here.
here's the thing: could Florida State be like, oh wait, this thing called handing the football off and not making DJU throw the ball 30 times a game? Could that happen this week? Yeah, sure. But nothing that I've seen these past few weeks indicates to me that they're going to stop using DJU in a terribly inappropriate way that like is an absolute disgrace to coaching staffs in college football. It's like
It's
it
ridiculous.
is ridiculous. It is beyond beyond a disservice to the players that came there in the transfer portal to play for a winning championship caliber football team to watch DJU try to swim with a freaking anchor attached to his ankle. It's unbelievable.
And let me say this. It's not, I do not blame DJU. He is
No,
exactly who we've seen before. If you give him a running game and some kind of weapons, he is not a bad college football quarterback. And that's what I think the thought was is with Norvell, you trusted him as a play caller, and it's been awful. Listen, when Auburn played California, I will give Auburn credit this way. Jarquez Hunter, by the way, is better than anything Florida State has at the running back position, but he ran the ball well at times. He averaged almost 6 yards per carry, and they just couldn't get into it because anytime they go back to drop back for pass, like bad stuff would happen, right? And listen, if DJU was throwing the ball 30 plus times a game, again, this is going to get ugly, I think, for Florida State. If they commit to running the football, that is their chance. Now, on the other side, you still have to stop the run, right? And if Thomas and Ott are healthy, or at least healthy enough, playing well, Mendoza has looked awesome. And even with the backup receivers, they have done such a good job. And I know AZ Thomas and Florida State has good secondary, but I do think those linebackers are pretty susceptible. And I trust Cal in the short to intermediate games. Quick separation, quick hitters, being able to run the football, stay ahead of the chains, do everything you need to do. Basically, it's not a crazy similar formula that you had to go into Auburn and beat them, right? Here's what I'll say this though. I have it on pretty good authority, or at least my gut feeling, right? My good authority is my gut feeling.
it's a great authority.
In authority, that Auburn environment, did you play 2 weeks ago? Much, much tougher in the first quarter than I think it's going to be in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
I wonder how deflated that crowd is going to be, whether it's going to be desperate
And it
and
could be
trying to will their
hostile.
team.
It could be
It could
hostile in the
be,
other direction.
that's what I'm saying. And you can hear a lot of boos, right? So I think if you're Cal, get off to a hot start and put this thing away. And then we're talking about, you know, not that we're putting Mike Norvell in the hot seat because his buyout is massive and they just redid his contract. But you're talking about, I mean, wheels falling off. And they already have, by the way. They're just trying to tape them together. And on the other side, the Cal Bears, man, they get a bye and then they host the ACC favorites. who have to come across the country to see them. I can't wait, man. I'm so glad Cal and Justin Wilcox are getting the credit they deserve. This game will be on ESPN2, 6 o'clock game. I think a lot of eyes will be on it because it's obviously Florida State, and I think people like to watch, people can't look away. It's like a car accident. You just can't look away. But I think Cal's going to earn a lot of respect that they should have already had by now this game. I'm with you. Give me Cal to cover and to win as well.
Let's go, dude. Let's friggin' go. Like last point I want to make about this as well. This game actually means more to Cal than it does for Florida State. Like Cal is
Oh, yeah.
in this to win this. Florida
The
State, like you
ACC.
said,
ACC title game, by the way.
like I think we're on like Florida State was already on sticker alert. All right, we knew that, but it's also on like at what point do these players give up on the coaching staff? You know, so I don't anticipate it happening this week. And here's the thing: here's why I also took the under in this game. Not to spoil our best bets for later, but under 45, you can still get that number. What Florida State has to do to win the football game, like you said, is run the ball. Okay, then that plays into the under. You know, if they have to throw the ball, that also plays in the under because they can't score points. Cal, on the other hand, if Jaden Ott is injured and he's not playing, they're gonna have a tough time running the ball. And I think Florida State's secondary is good enough. I think it was supposed to be really good.
It's better than Auburn's.
Yeah, it is good. Mendoza might have issues, especially if Tobias Merriweather's not available or other receivers because they're missing some of their top guys. So this just screams under to me. But you know what also screams? Horrible, god awful, terrible pick sixes that absolutely squash unders. But hey, give me Cal plus 2.5. That's just a pick, it's not a bet. But it feed me the under in this game. Give me Cal on the gritty one, baby. Let's go, Bears. Travel to Minneapolis. So do the Hawkeyes. Rumor has it the Redshirt Sophomore is going to be in Minneapolis for this game. I was favored by 2.5 in this game. Minnesota historically struggling with Iowa and their rival, except for last year. There perhaps was a controversial special teams play involving Cooper DeJean. However,
and a so-called hand being up in the air, which was called, and that was the result. And if you're an Iowa fan, obviously you're gonna scoff at that. But listen, hey, you've had Minnesota's number for a while now. It's gonna be a heck of a game. 6:30 game in Minneapolis there. The weather's gonna be beautiful, which is obviously these offenses need everything they can get. So I'm glad there's gonna be some kind of good weather and maybe good momentum for these offenses. But listen, it's gonna be a great game, I think. When I say great game, I mean physical, a lot of passion, great crowd, right? If you are coming here for offense and big plays and great quarterback play, you're probably not going to get it. You really aren't. And listen, I'll say this. I don't know if I would not be surprised if we see Brendan Sullivan a little bit for Iowa, more than we have. He came in one play last week. He threw the touchdown. I get that. But McNamara has struggled, man. He has struggled. And I know they're running the ball well, explosively with Caleb Johnson, but I think it's going to take more than that to beat Minnesota. I think you need to do what UNC did, right? In that second half, being able to move the football and throw the ball just a little bit, complement the running game just a little bit, back them off just a little bit to be able to have a chance here to go on the road and get a win in Minneapolis for the Floyd Rosedale.
yeah, I mean, running the ball was a formula that worked well for UNC. It's a front seven for Minnesota that, yes, they've only allowed 3.5 yards per play, 2.6 yards per carry on the season. Competition has a lot to do with that, I think. And North Carolina was still able to run the ball, right? So Iowa is going to definitely be able, they're going to try to run the ball effectively out of the gates. Okay. I mean, the X factor for me here is, Darius Taylor's really good. Like, really stinking good. I don't know how Max Brosmer is going to do against this Iowa defense, who's kind of proven itself to be pretty awesome yet again. I know they kind of had a blunder against Iowa State, but that was a game that they didn't have an offense that complemented them there in the second half, so it was tough. It was tough. I look at this and I'm like, historically, Iowa's had success against Minnesota. I look at this defense for Iowa. I like their defense better than I like Minnesota's offense. I'm not sure. I don't love Iowa's offense, but also don't love Minnesota's front seven in the way that they were trying to stop the run against North Carolina. I know North Carolina's different because Marion Hampton is a legitimate NFL talent. I don't know if the three backs that Iowa have qualify as NFL talents yet, or from what I've seen. I think I'm going to lay in with Iowa here to -2.5. That'll be my pick. I would win. I would cover in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right there with you. I actually feel pretty good about Iowa going in and getting win. Normally, I do not feel good about laying 2.5 with Iowa. And
Yeah.
honestly, because that's a large number to get over, especially with the field goal battles that this game has been recently. Dragon Ketchuk was unbelievable in a super windy environment last year in Iowa City. This year, he has struggled. The reigning Big Ten kicker of the year has struggled, including missing the potential game winner, albeit it was a pretty long field goal against UNC in week 1, night game as well for Minnesota. Last year in this game, Darius Taylor had a couple catches and some good runs, and Daniel Jackson was the only other player to have a catch in that game. Now, that was Ethan Kaliakmanis zeroing in on his best playmaker. I do think what Brosmer does better, and he has shown that the past 2 weeks, is looking for other options, going through his progressions, finding matchups he likes pre-snap. And I do think you're seeing Lemecki Brockington, you're seeing Donald Driver's kid, Christian Driver, you're seeing the tight end Jamison Gears, and Elijah Spencer take steps that they were not consistent in last year. Yes, it was Nevada and it was Rhode Island, but the Max Brosmer and this offense that has played recently, it looks completely different than it was in week 1. Even though it's obviously worse competition, it's just fluid, right? They're getting in rhythm. I do worry about how they have run the football, though. I was expecting them and hoping for them to dominate Rhode Island and Nevada. And outside of Darius Taylor's 80-yard touchdown, they really didn't. And Iowa's defense, especially the defensive line, has some dogs, some absolute dogs. And that front seven with those linebackers, really, really, really good. And Minnesota does not want to be in 3rd and long because, first of all, your offensive line and pass pro has not been very good either. This is supposed to be a strength of your team, and they've been shuffling that right side with Quinn Carroll and a litany of people just trying to figure out what you want to do there at right guard and right tackle. And that scares me a ton for Minnesota, especially with how limited Iowa is offensively. And all they got to do is break a couple big plays. This game has historically come down to who can be explosive plays, who can win, 25, 30 plus yard gains and put themselves in field goal range to potentially steal some points because points are hard to come by. And 36.5 is obviously a low total. I think last year, was it below 30?
It might have been 29.5.
I think it
It was
closed under
really
that.
sticky. But I think
And it still hit the under. It
yeah.
still hit the
What was
under
it,
pretty
13,
easily.
12 or 13-10, 13-12?
12 to 10. 12 to 10. 4 field goals from John Ketchuk. But listen, I still, like you said, with Minnesota's, explosiveness or lack of explosiveness in that front seven and what they do struggling to stop the run. And Iowa's ability to hit explosive run games, that's going to be the difference in this football game. I don't think McNamara has to play well. I don't think they have the weapons to play well. But if they can run the football with some kind of consistency and or explosiveness, a couple plays here and there, I feel pretty good about Iowa to be able to win and win by 2.5.
I do too. Also, I'm going to look at Minnesota. I mean, you talk about the offensive line struggles on that right side specifically. I mean, you're bottom 40 in yards per carry thus far as a team whose identity you would like to be to run the football. They're a bottom 30 team in sacks allowed. So you know that this Iowa defense could potentially be licking its chops here against a rival on the road. I'm liking the Hawkeyes here in this spot. Lay 'em.
Listen, I will say here, if you are going to be taking any kind of player props with Minnesota and you like Darius Taylor this week, do not take his rushing. Take his rushing and receiving. The way they're using him out of the backfield is actually really encouraging, and that's what Brosmer does well, going back to New Hampshire. And especially if they're struggling to run the football, you could see him dinking and dunking at Taylor. Listen, Taylor looked a lot different week 3 than he did week 2. Week 2, he was still coming off the injury. maybe fatigued, maybe conditioned, but also not that explosiveness and that power we're used to seeing from him. Week 3, he looked really good against a pretty well coached Nevada team. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait. I know obviously the redshirt sophomore will be there in full effect, and it'll be awesome. It'll be awesome.
Josh Heupel revenge game. Tennessee is headed to Norman. And I guess, look, I don't know all the details there. Josh Heupel, I think in Oklahoma, that whole program, not sure they really have settled their differences per se. This Oklahoma team offensively has struggled. Yeah, you saw them score 30 points against Tulane. Jackson Arnold was their leading rusher. That is not going to win you a game against Tennessee. And I get it. This Tennessee team has not played, in fact, anyone good. I would say NC State. I'll go as far as saying they're a bad team, like we talked about earlier. Kent State is not exactly a world beater. In fact, they lost to St. Francis. That is horrible. That is absolutely, utterly abysmal. 7.5 is a funky line, though, because, you're getting the hook there with the touchdown. I do believe in Oklahoma's defense, though. I believe in what Brent Venables is doing there. You get him at home. Nico hasn't traveled to an environment like this yet. He really hasn't. Remember the NC State game? That was at a neutral site. So you're still looking at a young quarterback going on the road for your first SEC matchup for Nico. So I think there's some interesting variables here to look at outside of just we believe with the eye test that Tennessee is the better football team, which for me is the case. And I will be laying Tennessee minus 7.5 for our picks. So
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I do think it's interesting because I think Oklahoma wants to muddy this game up and make it a
yeah.
defensive slugfest. And if you told me that 3 years ago, that maybe both these teams, I think, feel comfortable in
Yeah.
kind of a slugfest, it's like, what has happened? What has happened? But Tennessee, credit to them and what they do in the front seven there. And obviously, Oklahoma, Brent Venables, the talent that they brought in there, the experience they have in the secondary, and the struggles offensively. That's what's concerning, especially to run the football with anyone not named Jackson Arnold. Listen, I like Taylor Tatum. I do. I thought he showed some good stuff last week. Javante Barnes came in and gave him a spark too. Gavin Sawchek, I was disappointed in. We were high on him. Right, we were high on him last year, and he took over. And it was obviously a much different, you know, team and offense when he got in running game. So we'll see, but it's tough, man. I love that Oklahoma's at home for them. And obviously you mentioned Nico going on the road. And listen, they looked really good against NC State, but it was almost like they played really well. And Nico, you almost felt like there was some meat on the bone there. And obviously, he's a young quarterback, high expectations. I get that. But it felt like he didn't even play his best football and he still won by 41. That's what's so encouraging about this Tennessee football team is Nico, what he can do, not only on the ground, but just kind of making plays and quietly having good football games, but also with Dylan Sampson and how good he is running the football.
So
That's why I feel good about Tennessee. Even if Nico's not on his A game, they can still win this game by over a touchdown. So I'll lay the points there, absolutely. But in terms of Oklahoma's chances and path to victory, like I said, it's money this game up. It's a low scoring slugfest. It is, you know, taking advantage of explosive plays because I do think that Tennessee's secondary it was not exposed by NC State. McCall's arm does not have the arm to do that. Jackson Arnold does, right? That is the sole reason, or one of the reasons why Oklahoma felt comfortable moving off of Dylan Gabriel was because of that explosive threat that Arnold gives you with his right arm and Deion Burks, Brendan Thompson, guys like that that can make plays over the top and create explosive plays for you. To me, that's what I look for Oklahoma to do because down to down success has not been there, especially since Jeff Levy's gone. Right, it's a little bit concerning. Right, we talked about with Seth Luttrell earlier. It's like this is not what we thought we were going to see. Houston was not an ideal game. Even Tulane too. It didn't feel. It felt clunky at times. Still waiting for this passing game to get going. And I guess maybe Tennessee. But if you want to get right game, I do not want it to be against that defensive line and those playmakers they have in the front seven against Tennessee.
yeah, the level of competition that Tennessee plays should definitely be considered like I said before, just the eye test is just screaming at me that Tennessee is one of the best teams in the country. And Josh Heupel is not going to pull punches against Oklahoma. You guys can look up the lore behind that on your own time and all the whatever. All right. Josh Heupel was a quarterback for Oklahoma, pretty dang good one that won a lot of football games, including a national championship. But I don't think Josh Heupel is going to be pulling punches against this Oklahoma team, which is why I'm comfortable laying it. And this is not a bettable line for me, I don't think. If this drops, this could drop under 7, realistically. If it does, I gotta think about it. But I'm kind of confident in Oklahoma's defense enough where, like you said, they could muddy the game up. They could try to slow things down. And if Nico, again, first road SEC environment, if he makes a couple mistakes, those can compound. Or if they aren't able to run the ball as effectively with Dylan Sampson, that maybe they were, because Lord knows NC State's D line is not good. I mean, we saw that from a mile away. So I do believe that Dylan Sampson is a fantastic running back, though. This is not to discredit. I think he's an NFL running back. Just let's see. I think this is going to be a huge litmus test for Tennessee. We've seen Oklahoma get tested, all right, by several teams. This is Tennessee's chance to show everyone that they are one of, if not the best team in the country.
Here's my fear with not taking this as a best bet is maybe it is too much of the bias that I had coming in the season. I Oklahoma had a brutal schedule, and I think that kind of dinged them. But I did think there was a lot of talent there, especially returning offensively with some of those guys in the portal that they've kind of sprinkled in with. But like to me, it almost feels like this week with USC, who's obviously up here, and Michigan's way down here. And if you're on podcasts, it's obviously two different scenarios there. And then same thing with Tennessee riding high and Oklahoma disappointing. It almost wonders like, are we about to get fooled here? And are those two teams going to just muddy up the football game and buckle down and find an identity? Right? Michigan has not. Oklahoma has not so far offensively. Is this the week to happen? Get right games at home. I don't think so, but I'm not confident enough to say that it's absolutely not going to happen.
This also marks the first time in the Redshirt Sophomore history that you and I have the exact same picks for every single game, spread and winners. That I'm going to absolutely lay a parlay with all of those in them, obviously. I have to. Okay.
Mhm.
But it's also scary because we could both totally be absolutely monumentally wrong and people are just not going to want to watch this again. But, I have faith that I trust our eyeballs. All right. I trust our eyeballs. Got a lot of favorites
Me
on
too.
here. Got a lot of favorites on here. A lot of them. A lot of them. But hey, maybe it's the week of the favorite. I talk about the week of the
Yeah.
dog all the time. I love me some weeks of the dogs. This is not a week of the dog. All right. We're not just chalk on this show. We evaluate. But let me tell can we get into the dogs?
I was going to say there are 4 dogs this week. That is the week of.
The dirty dogs. Here we go. This is our segment. This is actually one of my favorite segments. We, meaning CD and I, pick 4 underdogs, some dogs that have to have a point spread of greater than 10. All right. We are hitting 25% on the year. Okay. Which, by the way, has made you some really nice money this year if you did tail. These aren't necessarily bettable games for us. This is just more of an exercise. Like we aren't necessarily sprinkling every single one of these. All right. So we're not saying you should tail these at all. But this is a fun exercise that we like doing. We are 3 for 6 on the year. I'm sorry, 3 for 12 on the years. That's about right. 3 weeks, 4. Yep. So last week we hit nice with Toledo plus 360. I think we got some really smelly ones today. Really smelly ones. Nothing under plus 320. So that's what we'd like to see. I'll go first. My first dirty dog. James Madison plus 320. I don't feel great about this one. Here's why. James Madison hasn't looked fantastic this season. But I also think that North Carolina stinks. All right. You get a team, James Madison, that is adept at playing up to the level of competition. You got a team like North Carolina that is very good at playing down to their competition. Who's going to play quarterback for North Carolina? I don't know. I have zero clue. What's his face? I'm going to call him what's his face. Came in and looked pretty decent last week against NC Central or whoever they played. What's his face playing against whoever, right? Um, Not sure if Connor Harrell's going to be there or not. To me, it doesn't matter. But if he is, so be it. I kind of like James Madison in this spot. Just give me them. I have them winning the Sun Belt. Actually, I still feel pretty decent about that, given what we've seen from the Sun Belt so far. But I know that there was a lot of moving pieces from last year. Kurt Signetti leaving off to Indiana, who looks great, by the way, over there. And I think JMU can do this. I think they can. I don't feel great about it. I feel better about my other one. But at plus 320, I'm looking at James Madison potentially upsetting North Carolina.
Now, listen, I don't hate that at all. I watched UNC in person, and they just were not impressive. And I don't think they have really been since. Moving on to my first one, we're going to head over. We have a Power 5 team, Power 4 team going on the road to Group of 5. That is never a good sight at
Uh-oh.
all. Duke on the road to Middle Tennessee State. By the way, I did
Wow.
go against Duke last week, and
Almost. It
it
almost
almost
hit.
cashed at a big time number, by the way. UConn,
It's
Duke had
plus
to come from
610.
behind.
It was plus 610.
Duke, that's 2 straight weeks, by the way. Duke has had to come from behind and get wins. Right, Northwestern a couple weeks ago and UConn last week. It's coming. It is coming, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, our Blue Devil fans. I am so sorry. But listen, Mid Tennessee State has a quarterback, by the way, Nicholas
Yeah.
Vadiato, who is a dog, and he was good last year, by the way. Right,
Yeah, he was
very
fun
good last year.
for what he had around him. Absolutely.
Yeah, 3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, 13
Brand new
interceptions.
coach over there at Middle Tennessee, Derek Mason.
Derek Mason,
I mean,
who's a good football coach, has had success
I think he's
in the middle of the
polarizing. I think he's a polarizing coach, but I think he could be good for that spot, you know?
what I trust him in games against Power Four teams. And by the way, they have not looked good, right? At Tennessee State. I think that's where the value comes from. Obviously, they struggled against Tennessee Tech. Ole Miss buried them. Which, by the way, Lane Kiffin does that to anyone that's not good or
Yeah.
not like an elite football team, right? And then Western Kentucky last week. Western Kentucky team, by the way, who is in a really, really tight point spread against Toledo team that just buried an SEC team, Mississippi
By the
State,
way,
who
Mississippi State would be favored maybe against Duke. Maybe. Could be close. I
they
don't
should
know.
be. They should be. If
Actually,
they weren't, that'd be
before last week, they would have been for sure.
for sure. And listen, we'll see. But I do love that Tennessee State is at home. I think the crowd's gonna be awesome. I think Duke, not that they're overlooking this game, but next week is North Carolina week. And I know it's not basketball season, but damn it, if that doesn't mean something, I think it does. So let's go. Give me the Blue Raiders over the Blue Devils.
That is a dirty dog. Dare I say stinky.
I think
Here's a
plus
stinker.
450.
Plus 450. Here's a stinker at plus 500. All right, let's go over to Mountain West. New Mexico. Just waiting for their first win. Just waiting. They play a Fresno State team whomst Sacramento State lit up offensively. All right. You don't think New Mexico can do the same thing, if not more, then you're wrong. Okay. Now, Fresno State has an opportunity here. They could just run the ball, right, and try to control this game. But New Mexico is just a frisky team at plus 500. What are we talking about? I like this New Mexico team. When I say I like Dampier at quarterback. That dude is an absolutely electric factory.
And they got the wide receiver is awesome too.
Yeah,
I forget his name, but he's really awesome too.
dude, and just plus 500. You're telling me that I like them in this spot. Bronco Mendenhall is a guy that we talked about was probably one of, if not the best coaching hires of the entire offseason in terms of fit, right? Going back to New Mexico where he was before, just being a really good coach. Yeah, it didn't work out in Virginia. I don't care. Here it is. He's putting in work at New Mexico. I like what they have. New Mexico at a smelly plus 500. Let's ride.
Listen, I love that. New Mexico is a dangerous football team in terms of they're going to give you a sweat, and it's eventually they're going to break through. I love that pick there. I've got another one, and we're going to go here to the Power Four in the ACC. Louisville is, I believe, 10.5 point favorites over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech plus 320. And listen, I know Georgia Tech lost a couple weeks ago against Syracuse, but maybe Syracuse is pretty darn good. And here's what I'll say this. Tom McCord is playing unbelievable. And I know every coach who's ever touched Tyler Shuck just loves him. Just loves him. And listen, they might be right. He's healthy, right? It might be all good for Louisville, but damn it though. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, Kejan Brown, like these guys, they haven't been tested, right? They've been playing just awful, awful football teams. Austin, PA, Jacksonville State, terrible, terrible football teams. This will be a big time step up in competition. And by the way, another spot here for a look ahead game. Notre Dame is next week for Louisville, and they want that one bad again, like last year, to get a win there. I don't know, man. Georgia Tech, first of all, is a team that could lose by 20 or win by 15 in this game. I really think so. Just how volatile they are, how explosive they are running the football. Haynes King, if he's taking care of the football, if they are getting separation for Eric Singleton and hitting him in stride, I absolutely love that for them. Georgia Tech here, again, a team I felt pretty good about early in the year, right? We saw what they did to Florida State. They've been really impressive in every game. That's not the Syracuse game. And by the way, they still fought back on the road in that game too. And maybe Syracuse is just really good. Give me Georgia Tech plus 350, 320, excuse me,
20.
to beat Louisville.
I love that. Let me add on to that schedule dynamic as well. Get Louisville playing two terrible teams, and then they have a bye before this game. And you know, you might be saying, okay, they got a bye. They got an extra week to prepare for Georgia Tech. Or they have Georgia Tech is a physical football team. All right, we've established that. But are they going to get punched in the mouth here? And are they going to have to get up off the mat? Is Louisville going to have to get up off the mat in this first quarter, like they did, by the way, last year in the same spot? Louisville
Right.
miraculously had a couple gigantically explosive runs that put them back in this football game after Haynes King absolutely decimated their defense in this opener. Decimated. So I like Buster Faulkner in this spot big time.
Last thing I'll say real quick is that, listen, I do like Ja'Cory Brooks, and I love to see him playing well. But outside of that, right, we know they had the injury to Colin Lacey. Do you have guys that can really take advantage of maybe a vulnerable secondary for Georgia Tech? I don't quite know. And secondly, too, we have seen this time and time again, Jeff Brom is really good in big time games. And I'm not going to compare him quite to the guy down there in Auburn, right? Where Hugh Freeze, where he can blow any game you play. Marcus Lee can blow any game you play. But there are times where this Jeff Brom teams have looked unprepared for football games, and this might be one of them. And first of all, I don't think Georgia Tech needs that too. I think they're talented and good enough, physical enough to just outright win. But again, all kind of things that I think add value to this, and could be a sneaky one for Georgia Tech.
Well, speaking of value, let's head over to the counter. All right, let's get right. I'm in the green this week. You're not quite in the green here, but I know you got a couple. I think you told
Back.
me you have more bets this week than you've had any other week so far. So you're dialed in, ready to get back in this. Let me start. All right. Let's go back to Norman, Oklahoma. Tennessee, Oklahoma, under 58 points. You're going to call me the total taker, all right, because I love taking these unders. In this spot, I think Tennessee, Nico on the road. I'm not sure if they're going to have that same explosive offense. I trust Oklahoma's defense. I also don't trust Oklahoma's offense. And now there could be a situation if Jackson Arnold, who doesn't traditionally love taking care of the football in the games that we've seen him play, that could hurt, right? That could hurt. I'm depending on these quarterbacks to somewhat take care of the football. And both teams are going to want to run the football, hopefully. Well, I mean, I'm not sure Oklahoma's going to do it well, but I have a feeling that Tennessee's going to want to run the football. The only problem that this could hurt, or the one thing that I'm worried about is Josh Heupel running up the score. All right, that is a factor. That is a factor. So, Tennessee, Oklahoma under 58 is my first play.
Listen, I love that there. I'll go to a rival game we talked about earlier. Iowa at Minnesota. Give me Iowa minus 2.5 to go on the road there. Listen, I'm a Minnesota fan, and this is the second straight week of me betting against them. Last week, Nevada just did not show up and could not move the football. I do think Iowa will be able to run the ball in this game, and if they can run the ball in this game, it's going to be really tough for Minnesota. I think to have to consistently put together drives and score and score, and something we have not seen them be able to do in this rivalry in a long, long time. And by the way, this is probably their worst offensive line they've had in probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean that's not crazy. I'm staying away. I'm staying away from that one. But I see where your head's at. I like that. That was similar like the Cincinnati one last week. Like I was like I wanted to take it, but I didn't have the go ahead to do it. Hey, and it cashed. So there you go. Something to look forward to. Let's go back to another game that we previewed earlier. Cal, Florida State, under 45. Yep. Feed me that. Okay, Cal. What do we talk about? I already told you. I gave you a little bit of a sneak peek at that. Okay. Florida State, no identity on offense. Okay. They showed somewhat, ability to play defense these past couple weeks. You know, I don't think Cal's going to out physical Florida State the way that Georgia Tech did. But Cal, if they continue to have injuries at the receiver position, like how long is it till it catches up to them? Is Jaden on 100% here? I'm kind of anticipating these offenses not doing great. And both defenses, California's defense has played well. So I like that spot there. Give me Cal, FSU under 45.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I don't hate that at all. I think that can hit in a numerous amount of ways there. Let me go back to the well here and Cincinnati -3.5 over Houston. I've tried to go against Houston before, and Oklahoma's offense let me down. This time, I'm not too worried. Cincinnati at home, they got back right against a pretty good Miami Ohio team last week, and they just struggled to close out Pitt. I do not think Houston presents that same challenge throwing the football that Pitt does as well. And Houston, when they lost to UNLV, UNLV ran for almost 200 yards. Corey Kiner has been averaging over 100 himself throughout the year. He's a really good football player. And oh, yeah, by the way, Brendan Sorsby is a good football player. And he can also put the ball on the ground. Two, they haven't quite used that yet. I think this is the week that they can really expose that. Once they get in the conference play, they need this win. They need this win. We talked about Cincinnati having to start strong. I think they do it again this week. 11 a.m. kickoff, Saturday morning. Bearcats. Let's go.
All right, I see you. I see your Cincinnati -5.5, and I'll raise you Penn State -48.5 against Kent State. Here's
It's so
why.
crazy.
All right. That sounds like a gigantic spread. Okay. Tell that to Tennessee in the first quarter last week. All right. Different teams. I understand. Okay. This Kent State team is maybe all-time stinker. Okay. And I know I said this about UAB last week, taking Arkansas -24. But you know what James Franklin also likes to do? He loves to cover gigantic spreads. Okay. You know that he's going to be continuing to run plays in that fourth quarter with those second teamers because here's his philosophy. He believes that everyone deserves an equal opportunity when they get a chance to play in the football game. And you know what? That's awesome. I don't know if this is already baked into the number, but feed me James Franklin's Nittany Lions to beat Kent State by more than 48.5 points.
Listen, I don't hate that at all. I can't go against my guy Kenny Burns, so I won't ride you on that. But I'll stay in the Big 12 here. I got TCU -2.5 over on the road to SMU here. I guess not really Big 12, but kind of a like in-state Texas matchup there. Fort Worth versus Dallas. We love that there. Listen, I don't know how good SMU is. Actually, correction. I don't think SMU is that good, right? We've seen them multiple weeks now struggle in games. We've seen them struggle to throw the football, right, against BYU. And by the way, they don't have the rushing attack that UCF did, right? And to really be able to take advantage of TCU's front seven or really front four there, front three with Andy Avalos. I think TCU bounces back this week. I think Hoover's been playing really, really well. I look for them to get to start running the football just like Nevada did against SMU, just like BYU was kind of able to do against SMU. I like this matchup here for TCU to go on the road, get right, and I do not think SMU is that good.
I agree. The one thing I'll say about SMU, though, is that they have a starting quarterback now. Kevin
But
Jennings.
Jennings, okay, keep going, keep going.
I'm just saying they have a starting quarterback. They're not alternating, taking guys out of rhythm and trying to figure out stuff as the game goes on. Instead of now they actually have a game plan. They have a guy that's going to work first team reps all week, and they have a plan built around Kevin Jennings' ability and play style, which is quite frankly a lot different than Preston Stone's.
Yeah, and probably better. But listen, he did not look good against BYU at home, right? I know it wasn't like he was. I wasn't. No, he wasn't the guy, and like it was kind of weird in that week. But still, man, I know they had and I think they had an extra day or two to get prepared for this football game. But again, I don't know. I like TCU in the spot here.
I like who I like in the state of Texas for my last spot. Let's go over to Denton. Let's take North Texas -9 against Wyoming. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? Are you on
Is
this
that a
game?
lock agreement? Is that a lock
I
agreement,
mean, we
baby?
are
North
absolutely
Texas.
spanking North Texas -9. Here's why, and you can give your reasons as well. Um, the turnover luck against Texas Tech was horrendous. All right, that's ultimately that in the past game that Texas Tech had, the explosive one. It's kind of what made that game get out of hand. All right, I know Texas Tech clobbered them. Okay, Wyoming has yet to score more than 14 points in a game this season. They continue to struggle to throw the ball. Uh, I don't know if Harrison Whaley's back. Pretty sure he's still missing extended time. And if they're just going to send Svada back out there again to the Wolves, good luck. I know North Texas defense is terrible, but I don't think Wyoming's defense is all that good either. Spoiler alert. All right, spoiler alert. This Wyoming team is terrible. North Texas at home gets right. Chandler Morris throws for over 300 yards in an absolutely dominating dub for the Mean Green. Here we go.
Yeah, Texas Tech had explosive play after explosive play after explosive play. That's not something I think Wyoming is capable of. On the contrary, I do think Chandler Morris and this offense is capable. Ward is a monster for North Texas. Yeah, let's lay him. I just do not feel good in Wyoming be able to just score enough to cover. Like I don't think 9. Yes, it's sure it's a highish number, but I do not think North Texas is going. I'm not fear any kind of backdoor cover here, and I might come back to haunt me. I know that, but listen, I don't think Wyoming is good offensively, and I don't think they're all that great defensively. And I think North Texas is going to
No.
take advantage of that and jump on them early. And Wyoming from behind is not where they want to be playing, and they also do not want to be playing on the road away from Laramie.
Jake Retzlaff looked like a superstar. That's all you need to know about this Wyoming defense. It is terrible. Jay Sawville has nothing going for this Wyoming team this year. Nothing. Now, I'm not saying you can't have it in the future, but I am not confident on North Texas. Or sorry, I'm not confident on Wyoming covering against North Texas. So yeah. So to recap our picks there, I'll recap the Dirty Dogs as well. JMU plus 320, Middle Tennessee State plus 450, New Mexico plus 500, and then Georgia Tech plus 320. And then for the best bets, I have Tennessee, Oklahoma under 58. You have Cal FSU under 40. Or sorry, I have Cal FSU under 45. Penn State minus 48.5. North Texas -9. You have Iowa -2.5. Cincinnati -5.5. TCU -2.5. And kind of a mega double uniter. North Texas -9. We're both on this week. Last time we were both on something. Well, actually, it's more of like a you took it, and then I was like, oh, that sounds really nice. But this time, our own separate convictions told us to take North Texas -9. I'm feeling good. So there we go. That's it for our week 3 or week 4 preview. Thank you for tuning in. If we missed a game that you guys wanted us to preview, just let us know in the comments. Maybe we could talk about that team next time. Maybe we could talk about it in our recap, which we'll be posting, Monday, probably Monday. And then, yeah, if you like the content, like the video, it's a simple rule that we have here. Make sure you're also subscribed as well. If you want to stick around with us for the rest of the year, we appreciate all you guys' support. And this was one of the more fun episodes I think I've had this so far this season. I feel like we're in the rhythm right now. We're in the football season. Let's go. CD, anything for us on the way out?
Going to be a great week. Thanks for sticking around with us. Appreciate you guys. And I'll let you guys do. Hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, enjoy this weekend of football.
We'll see y'all in the next one.